Greetings and salutations, everyone. Ryan Stevens here, presenting Invisible Walls, episode 127. Shane Satterfield is out surprising his mom for her birthday. Congrats to Shane.
You just ruined it, man.
Oh shit. No, it'll be over by then. He made her like a 13-minute long video to surprise her, and I just thought it'd be funny if by accident he showed episode 100 of Invisible Walls. That would be a surprise. Rounding off the crew today, we have Miguel Lopez.
Hello.
We got Justin Spear.
Hi.
John Chang. Johnny Bear will actually be commenting a couple times.
Hello.
And everyone knows him. Everyone loves his voice. Brandon Jones.
How's it going?
Daniel Kaiser.
Yeah, exactly. Jeff Keighley.
And we'll have some other dudes coming in today. And per usual, we have a great show, and you should stick around and listen to it with your ears.
Thank God that you are still among the living, my friend.
The Lycan Lord has been defeated. I have his power. What happened here?
Well, this is a very Castlevania-themed episode of the show today, but to kickstart it, Brandon Jones is here with a very special announcement.
I've been playing a lot of Castlevania games. Well, everybody already knows. We announced, I think it was going out in the newsletter this week, that we're going to be doing 5-part retrospective.
But people don't read.
Yeah, they don't read the forums. Well, I made an announcement in the forum. But yeah, it's going to be a 5-part retrospective. It starts Monday, October 4th, I believe. And I think they're going to be going up on Mondays with the exception of the last episode, which goes up on the Sunday before the next Monday, which will be Halloween, which is a great time to wrap up the retro.
That's pretty awesome.
And I really wanted to do it leading up to the release of the game, which I thought was going to be at the end of October, which was the end of October for the better part of the year, and then all of a sudden it was the beginning. So the game's already out. The review went up today.
And these things happen.
So yeah, but it has nothing to do with any of the old games aside from just like paying homage to them. But like the story doesn't really build up to it. So
can you give us a sneak peek of how the 5 episodes kind of break down or anything?
Sure. Well, if you really look at the series as a whole, it's the 8-bit era, the 16-bit era, the attempt at 3D from like the 64 games to both the games on the PS2 and Xbox, and then handheld, like from start to finish. Just Kid Dracula all the way to the Order of Ecclesia. Was that the last one that came out on the DS?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
It seems that's been kind of like the most enduring expression of Castlevania.
That's what it was now. I mean, that's what it was for about 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
That's the only Castlevania games worth playing. But
any big surprises in your plays?
How
horrible are the original Game Boy games?
They're not bad. They're linear. I mean, you play a game like Castlevania 2.
They're really hard.
You play the
really
handheld
hard.
games, and you kind of, it's nice to only have like 1 or 2 enemies on screen at a time. Like especially after playing, 1, 2, and 3.
I kind of like the Game Boy games because Belmont still have that super heavy jump, like they weigh like just a ton, and you're barely clearing,
Right,
like a big gap. Because you guys like, oh, I'm so muscular, buff, I can barely lift my frame off the ground.
Compare that to Alucard, where it's so feathery, the jump.
Yeah.
Wispy like.
Yeah.
But
like a shadow.
Alucard's cool too.
Dracula backwards. I mean, personal opinion, obviously the 3D games have, not been held in the highest regard. Is the one standout is the better of the 3D games?
Lament of Innocence wasn't bad. I mean, the 64 games were terrible. I mean, they were not. No one really knew what was going on during the development of that game. This is what it feels like when you're playing it. It's like I can't imagine that they were happy with that or thought that it was indicative of what Castlevania should have been. It was such a drastic departure. But I haven't gotten into Curse of Darkness yet, but I've been playing Lament of Innocence. And it's not bad. It's not.
Curse of Darkness is bad. No, Lament of Innocence I liked. I wish you were here the other day when I was trying to talk about the new Castlevania and Lament of Innocence. So Lament of Innocence is pretty cool.
It's pretty
Did
fun.
you get that big boss where he's like just all of his internal organs are exposed and you whip him and it's just like fountains of blood everywhere?
It's just the
new Castlevania missed out on that.
The main guy is pretty effeminate, but other than that, it's a fun game.
He's a noble.
Just the collar. The collar is just huge on that guy, and giant gloves and just a little ridiculous.
And I know this is going way back, but when we did our GT countdown for top 10 NES games, Castlevania 3 is pretty freaking impressive.
That's amazing. Yeah,
I know they have a bunch of extra mappers and chips in there to make that's like an NES card on steroids, but I mean that is an impressive game. And it's just kind of funny how it kind of followed that kind of Mario Brothers thing where the second game's kind of the odd man out, and then the third is just like a completely refined 8-bit.
Zelda 2 also.
Yeah, totally.
Actually, I drew a lot of comparisons between the second one and Zelda 2, like going into towns, talking with people, having... I just thought it was interesting.
I did like Castlevania 2, though, because I had the Worlds of Power. Did anyone ever see those? They were unlicensed.
No.
Yeah, they did one for like Blaster Master, but they were like, you know, and like Ninja Gaiden, and they were stories.
They're
of
novels,
the things.
right?
Yeah.
Kinda.
Yeah, and they were pretty ridiculous, but even though it was all like, you know, you're hunting down Dracula's body parts, but they all like, I think if I
Found
remember
an
correctly,
eyeball.
they all talk, you know, or like his heart's drumming or something like that. It was really, really bizarre.
Yeah, if you don't know what you're doing in that game, there's no way to finish it. I mean, there's like 2 or 3 things.
It's a little
that's just
obtuse,
like, go
yeah.
knock on this door 5 times and then you win the game. But I think the biggest surprise was that not really. I guess Symphony's like the only game that made like a ton of money, whereas all the other games, like none of the Castlevania 1, 2, or 3, none of those cracked the top 50 on the NES. Like
Huh.
Ghost and Goblins did.
Including the
Like
handhelds.
Tennis did,
Have the
you know?
handheld games done well sales-wise?
I don't know. I haven't really gotten into that. Just from a research, there's so much research to do. I just haven't gotten there yet. But
Were you able to track down the import Saturn version of Symphony of the Night?
No.
With the horrible transparencies and bonus areas that are actually not worth playing.
I'm just writing that script now, and it from the way you describe it,
It's
doesn't
not
sound like
worth
that's
it.
something
I remember
I'm
like
not-
people importing it, like, oh, Saturn can do
It has
2D so well.
Has
And
what's
it's
her
like-
name in it?
Oh, can you play as the
chick.
chick?
The chick, yeah, you can kick
Yeah.
people and do kung fu moves.
Well, thanks for stopping by. It's
No
cool
problem.
for the
Check 'em out.
retrospectives. Yeah, I sound weird when I say things like stop.
Yeah,
by.
these are,
Coming
yeah. Well,
by.
just
Thanks
I
for
guess,
walking down 6 doors.
I guess
taking a
one
ride.
last thing is sorry we're not doing more of these, but they're really tough to do.
What motivates a man to confront the challenges that most of us would run from? Condemning him to solitude, exposing him to defeat and death.
So the Castlevania discussion continues with Lords of Shadow. We got Brandon has left us to go work on the retrospective, but Johnny Bear, who's usually manning the audio, is one of the fellows who has completely conquered Dracula once again in Lords of Shadow, and Justin's played a fair amount of it. Like,
Yeah, I played about half the game.
about
I
half the
guess.
game, and Miguel beat the game as well and
Yep.
did the review. So it's not a 10, huh?
It's not a 10. It's not a 10, no.
Quantify that.
Quantify it, justify the numbers.
Um,
Why do you hate the game, basically? Is what
No,
everyone
I
wants.
have a love and hate relationship with this game.
I-
Well,
I
I
really
think
like it.
Johnny's kind of the interesting one here, because you guys came back from the preview event, and Justin's like, it's got some issues, it's a game. Johnny's like, I want to play this game some
No
more, I
one
want to play this
believed
game
me,
some
yeah.
more. And he played, you came in, you played the entire game, and by the end, you were kind of, you wanted to spit on its
I was
grave.
like, yeah. What drew me in was the story and the combat. That's what drew me in.
And what broke this illusion?
The camera, the shitty camera. No.
Just from
Frustrating.
seeing Johnny and Miguel playing it in the office, like, there's no camera control, right? There's no right stick camera
No, it's
control.
all, yeah.
There's limited camera control, but I mean, they're setting an angle. You can kind of manipulate it from there.
It's
Certain points it's locked in.
It's basically
for
like it's
platforming or
basically
whatever.
a God of War style camera.
Yeah.
And
That
God of
it-
War does that really well, where they know for each combat situation where
Right.
to put the camera.
Here-
Even
here-
in God of War,
here's
there's
the way
some
here's the way I look at it. Right, like when you're playing, I think when you're building one of these games, there's like a final 10% effort that involves making sure that all of the camera angles that they choose for you are finely tuned, and that 10% is kind of what makes the games that function that way playable. It seems like they didn't go that extra mile to make this one as polished as it could be, and thus, yeah, like you spend a lot of time wandering around trying to figure out where to go because the camera doesn't necessarily reveal the path to you. When you're fighting, you know, it could also be an issue where you're in the middle of this fight and then all of a sudden half of your enemies are pushed off screen, and then it takes a little bit too long for you to get back to where you should be so that you can see them, and it just goes on like that. It's a problem in combat, it's a problem in exploration, it's a problem in platforming, where it's like this really touchy thing where you're trying to get from one place to the other and you don't really immediately see what you can interact with. There could be a grapple point that's
Yeah,
just
there's
out
a
of the way.
ledge you can't see that's not
Right,
really
grapple
highlighted.
point.
Maybe
Platforming
maybe
is
you
super
need to take
linear
a
as
step
well,
up. Yeah.
so it's even more aggravating.
Right, yeah. There's always one way. There's always a single way to get to where you got to go, and if you don't guess right the first time, boom, you die. Usually you spawn back right. You spawn right back where you started, but often you don't. Often you go back a few steps, and sometimes those steps are really aggravating steps that you kind of milk the first time. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're so used to having camera control now. I mean, obviously, first-person games, you're the camera, but
The last, yeah, it's just that last 10%. Like plenty of games do the fixed camera thing and they do it well.
Mhm.
It's just that when you don't
you need
do
that
it-
polish, though.
Yeah. It's evident after playing games like this where if that 10% isn't there, then compromise a lot of the experience.
But it's not like they don't have enough help tips or suggestion tips about what you should be doing. Like the entire fucking game, basically.
Right.
It's like the game. I don't think the game has confidence that they've laid it out for you to where you can understand it, and you can buy solutions for the puzzles. They're like,
Right.
Yeah, we saw
maybe
that.
you're not gonna get this
Or
one,
yeah,
so you just want to hit
if you
circle and buy
forfeit
the
XP
solution.
reward, which I think that's cool. I think a lot of people who play these games.
Oh yeah, I mean it's not a
in
bad
God of War
idea.
3, you get to a puzzle and you're like, what the fuck? Why am I even having to deal with these orbs and these statues? Let me just get back to
That's true.
what this game is about.
Or you
I
could
think-
you could take out the shitty puzzles in the first place and put something else in that's
Right.
actually enjoyable, right?
Yeah,
It's not a bad
I like
game,
shitty
but-
puzzles once in a while.
Yeah. The puzzles here, I think for the most part, they're fine. Partly because you could skip them if you want, but the thing that I took the most issue with are the kind of environment conundrums that the game doesn't classify as puzzles. They don't give you a solution for, but it's still like super not clear what you got to do anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what you spend 15 minutes fumbling around to.
Well, even
find a
early on,
solution
if
for.
you're trying to, you have a stick and you need to wedge it in a thing so you can turn a crank.
Right.
If you're not standing at the exact right spot when you hit R2, he will not jam the stick in the thing.
Is that
So
what
you
you're
could take a walk.
capturing
You could just walk
yesterday?
around and be
Yeah.
like, "What the fuck am I supposed to do with this stick?"
It's-
like,
yeah,
"Oh,
it's-
you weren't standing in the exact right
It's
spot."
really
too, you know?
arbitrary in that sense too, which I think that's just another symptom
Yeah.
of like it not having that final bit of polish that would
Yeah.
hammer
I mean,
all
they
that
said
out.
they wanted to do it like the old Castlevanias, and I just wish they would have focused a little more on the combat and maybe doing cool things with a whip.
Right,
They
'cause
weren't just
that-
like hit R2 at the context-sensitive whip point, you know?
I think
to
that
grapple
I think
onto
that
X object.
aspect of the game is really well done, and yeah, like you know,
Yeah, I won't
once-
say the combat's not fun. You know, it's
It
pretty
feels
decent.
good, man. Think about when you're doing the heavy hits, when you're doing that crazy combo that you're
They
basically
just repeated heavy hits.
Yeah,
that's
you're
the
rattling-
first upgrade you should buy. I think if someone hasn't
so
bought any
a
upgrades.
pro
get the-
tip from Justin right
Yeah.
there. But it actually, you know, it really
Heavy
does
combo.
feel like you're hammering the crap out of the ground with a heavy whip when you're doing that. It has that sort of really good feeling of impact that
Did the whip feel like a whip though?
it felt like a whip sometimes.
little
Other times
whippity.
it feels like this really heavy ass flail. They succeeded in giving that like the proper oomph, I think.
That's good.
Yeah.
It's a long game though, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
It has over 50 levels and 20 hours
does it
of
just
gameplay.
I mean, is one of the ones? Does it feel too long though?
It certainly feels too long when you realize that you spent the last 15 or 20 minutes wandering around the same environments trying to find out where to go. Not because it's a particularly interesting environment, but just because it's poorly laid out. The game probably, in most cases, doesn't need an in-game map, but in the instances where it does need them, it needs one really badly. It doesn't. It would have benefited in those cases, even like the kind of thing that Dead Space does, where you just summon the waypoint that tells you
Yeah.
where to go. Like that would have been so welcome. And that
well, then,
would've-
you know, the dude carries fairies on him. You would think they could be like,
I know,
"Hey,
right? Like,
listen,
yo, can you go
over
scout the
here."
area for me? Tell me where the fucking next platform is.
Make yourself useful.
Yeah.
But you think the other bosses, the bosses I fought that weren't Colossus type dudes, they seem pretty cool. Like, you know, whipping the troll in the eye.
Right.
That's fun.
The cool thing about them is that they functioned enough like regular enemies where your tactics worked. If you got good at combat,
Yeah.
you could apply those skills to bosses. Too many times in games like this, the boss is just like this crazy special.
Yeah, it's a separate.
circumstance.
It's more like a puzzle kind of, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, just figure out what to
Like,
do.
you
But
could
yeah,
s-
you can totally just the werewolf guy. You know,
You can still
I thought
parry
it was
him,
a pretty
right?
decent fight. Yeah.
Yeah, as long as you're paying attention, and that's cool. Yeah, and I would even say that the rank and file enemies in this game behave really well. You never feel as if a fight is trivial. Even like the shitty little goblins, for example, you could basically beat the crap out of them with area attacks. But every now and then, one of them's gonna throw a grenade at you that's gonna bust your ass. Same with the little flying imp dudes. You see them.
I got pissed at those guys. I spent a lot of money on a pricey upgrade, and then it's like, I was like, it did nothing. Burned my whole magic meter. There's like 20 of them.
Right.
Burned my whole meter, didn't kill anyone. And so I asked the dude who was working on it, this is the event, he's like, oh, if you look in the bestiary, they're actually strong against dark magic or light magic. I'm like, they're little like Satan goblins.
You're talking about
These
the
are
imps or the
chumpy enemies, yeah.
goblins?
I think some of the upgrades are kind of useless, though. I mean, I really wish there was, I don't know, they were better. No, yeah, the game's not without its strong points, so.
I guess, does it feel like a Castlevania game though?
Not
Yeah,
really.
What? I don't know. What does that even mean?
I don't know.
I
It's,
was
got,
that one?
it's Castlevania flavored, you know?
I wasn't going into it expecting anything on that level.
I don't think. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't think anyone really knows. Like, no one has made I mean, a good Castlevania.
What if-
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
I
is
think, like-
Castlevania Symphony of the Night to you, or is it just
we live
Whipping
in
candles.
whipping Dracula in the face? You don't whip candles though, so
There's no
No,
candles.
you do. You,
Oh, you do?
you whip candelabras and shit. Yeah.
I didn't whip too many candles myself.
They don't drop hearts. They drop like actual daggers and holy waters and stuff. We live in an age of of reboots now. So sure, I'll take it. This is Castlevania. I'll buy it. It ends in a way that kind of sets up the next one, and I think it's surprising. Like, I don't know. It would be shitty to spoil it, I think.
Yeah, Zobek would not want you to spoil it.
Yeah, Zobek would he would not take kindly to that. Dressed in his fineries, you know. But yeah, it ends in a cool way. You definitely come away curious as to what the next game's gonna be like. There's no doubt that this is gonna be. There will be a sequel. I think this game is gonna.
Too
sell
bad you
well.
hurt the game's sales with your sub 8 review though.
I know, yeah. I'm
You
sorry.
got that on your conscience.
I wish
So, but,
the
like-
market forgive me.
So sequel, what would you want to have them do? Just make it a little easier to navigate.
Just focus on
the good shit.
Focus
yeah.
on the good stuff. You know, don't neglect that final 10% that will make exploring this cool world all that much better.
I really wish I would want to, if I could cut one thing, I'd say cut out that stupid bullshit, fill in the, paint by numbers platforming like God of War style, Uncharted style, and let you use the whip to do things and just physically navigate
Right.
yourself,
Yeah, I think
it's
I
a
think
matter of,
there was a pressure to sort of touch on that. I
yeah,
think,
they have to make it big and epic and, going across these cliffs and making
Right.
these dramatic jumps, but, just put a skill element back in there, let me use the skills that I've learned to fucking navigate my environment and bypass stupid bullshit, whatever.
I think a good example of that would be the latest Prince of Persia game, Forgotten Sands. That game kind of hit those same notes on the platforming. You were going through these enormous environments, doing all this tricky shit, but it was kind of based on your dexterity and ingenuity to make it. This one is just kind of like, okay, guess which one of these surfaces the designer wants you to jump on.
What's
that's
sticky?
the hard part. Not
Yeah.
the actual execution is just like if that's after you figured it out, then
Right.
hold right, hit X.
Yeah. But I can understand that they had pressure to touch on that hallmark of Castlevania, right? The platforming. This game is one where if you fuck up,
That's
you
true.
land in a pit of spikes.
Well, I mean, that's not that stuff's not platforming. It's platforming if you can jump and land
Right.
on a platform on like
It's-
wherever the
it's
fuck you jumped and
platforming in
landed.
quotation marks, right?
Yeah, this is traversal, I think, instead. That's in you.
Attention! We have an escaped patient. Dresses like a bat. Oh, what an idiot. Should be considered cartoon and dangerous.
Kind of going off all that, I know a couple weeks ago we had a big discussion about RPGs in general, and I think we're gonna briefly talk about action games, action adventure games, like what's the fucking difference and shit like that, or what do we want to see? I know Justin, you've
Want
had
some action.
some strong opinions about
Well,
this.
I remember. Let me just start out. I remember when I was a little kid, I got the Nintendo Player's Guide. Remember that? It was like this
Yeah.
black book that came if you subscribed to Nintendo Power.
Talking about the genre classifications.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember Castlevania was an action game, and it called Metroid an adventure game. And I don't think it mentioned role-playing games in there. I don't think we had gotten there yet.
Yeah, I don't
They
think Dragon Quest
hadn't
was out
put
yet.
out the free Dragon
Those
Quest
are my
cartridge.
distinctions, and I'm sticking to it. If it's a game where you could get lost and shit, that's an adventure game.
No, I mean obviously like genres are getting more and more blurred, and they're all kind of stupid. But
Right.
Please check out all our genre awards at the end of the year.
Right.
But I don't know. I still think it's like they're blurred, but I think like Bayonetta that came out earlier this year. Yeah, there's some light exploration and comboing like weapon types and stuff like that. But that's basically it's all about the action, right?
Sure.
Like when Devil May Cry came out, that was way more action based, even though there was some big exploration. And then God of War kind of massaged that, where your reflexes weren't as important as you kind of just like went through the story
Right.
and stuff like that. Not that the game like Bayonetta or Devil May Cry like will shirk on story, even if they're nonsensical.
Right. I don't know. I think it's kind of useless to think about games in these categories apart from as a loose framework. Mm-hmm. I think at least when I'm trying to understand a game, I think more in terms of particular games that they're like. And
Oh yeah, like
sort
break
of-
them into like their component parts, like their
right,
legacy.
Yeah. I think usually going into like more, I don't know, more finer, more granular approaches to thinking about this, that's probably more useful than saying this is an adventure game, this is a third-person shooter.
Third-person shooter, that's a good one.
TPS. I heard the word TPS like 20 times. They were talking about
Right.
Really?
what was that game? Oh, Vanquish.
Really?
They use TPS a lot, and it took me like 3 seconds to figure out. Okay,
Well, then-
third person.
I've
got
not
that.
actually heard anyone ever say that. Or
Do
even,
It's
you
in
remember
fashion
like,
in Japan these days.
This also gives rise to all these sort of like specious categories. Like I remember when Cliffy B was first talking about Gears of War, he's like, "This isn't a running gun. This is a stop and pop." Like
he just likes rhyming.
Thank goodness that definition never stuck, man, because that sounds ridiculous. You know?
Kill switch.
Head over to the Stop and Pop.
Right.
But
Mom and Pop Stop and Pop.
but Justin, I know there's some things you've wanted to say about.
I think the thing I was really thinking of is when we were talking about this, the Castlevania discussion and how it resembles God of War. I'm just almost worried that too many games are kind of following this evolution and this evolutionary path, and maybe it's a little bit of a dead end. I mean, I really feel like Bayonetta is about as far as you can take the air launching, crazy, stylish, combo, 50 hit combo meter kind of combat. And God of War, made it it's a little more accessible, a little more easy, but people just keep doing this specific kind of combat, which to me, a lot of times in the worst cases, you're just nailing enemies with like 40 incidental hits, doesn't seem to do anything. It's like you're tickling them, and then you hit the quick time button and you fucking, rip their head off,
Right.
It's like, maybe you can think of a new way to approach that,
It's basically combos for the sake of the numbers.
Yeah,
right?
you're building combos, and like you're Spider-Man in the recent Spider-Man game. You're fighting this like low-level thug, and the comment you'd punch him in the face, boom! It's like you got punched by fucking Spider-Man. He's a badass, and this is like you hit the guy 6 times and you knock him down, and he gets back up and he's like, oh shit! And I'm like, Spider-Man. What are you doing?
A
fucking
game necessitates
KO this
that,
dude,
right? Like you can't just put a bunch of.
Does it necessitate it? I mean, there's
cardboard
got to
dump.
be different ways to
Right.
to make combat fun rather than just having you wail on people. I think Arkham Asylum was actually really good, but sometimes like these big guys, I'm like, why am I hitting them with like these 30 hits that doesn't look like it's doing anything at all?
Right.
It's like figure out some way to put on some damage, Batman. You're got the utility belt.
Do you think it made sense in Arkham Asylum though? Batman isn't. He doesn't.
Arkham
have-
Asylum is a great combat system, but for fighting those big guys, I mean, there's no reason to hit a dude if you're not doing damage, But basically, like, you're hitting a guy not to do damage to him, but to build your combo meter, to build your thing, and then eventually he gets dizzy and you can do something, right?
It's like
It's like making you. It's like making
It was
you
all
do.
automated.
Right.
Yeah. It's
But
you're
it
doing
worked.
something. It's true. It works and it's fun. And when you're fighting normal guys, it's great. I mean, I think their combat system's really brilliant, and it's you get your rhythm. It's great, but I just like to see some different ways of putting the hurt on people.
One
making it look a
critique I
little,
have along those lines though certainly is that I wish that designers would find a more interesting way to give you that explosive finisher apart from a quick time event.
Yeah, exactly.
Castlevania, I didn't touch on this much in my review, but Castlevania, they took, I guess, like a very tentative step forward in that they have those quick time events, but they don't require you to press any button. For the ones that you have to mash, you do. It'll switch up the buttons on you, but to do like to start off the finisher, it's just like this sort of circular cue that tells you when to hit any button. And sure, yeah, that's an advancement if like if you're stuck in a pile of mud and some guy throws you a rag made of silk, I don't know. That makes no
Tell me
sense.
more, Aesop.
Yeah.
I guess just to kind of just finish this off, I mean, you just want people. So Justin,
I just want to see some different. I want to
some
see some different
innovation,
branches,
some innovation in combat more
I mean,
than
it's
light
really
and heavy.
yeah.
Or
It's really
vertical
easy.
and
It's really easy to make a good system that's like built on Devil May Cry, evolved through God of War.
throw in some platforming.
It's good to do combos. Combos feel good. I like seeing a combo counter, but it doesn't need to be in every game.
Demon Souls.
Yeah, Demon Souls is
Demon
pretty,
Souls.
pretty
this
strong.
Is the, I mean, this is.
Although
the
it
game,
still feels like kind of like PS2 combat to me sometimes.
I don't.
But the countering is great.
Me and Justin, before we played Demon Souls, we were talking about what we'd really want to see in the next like Zelda. And I always liked the sword combat in Zelda. We like actually really using your shield. And I never thought there was really enough sword combat, even though they upped it from Ocarina of Time to Wind Waker to
Right.
Twilight Princess. They kept upping the amount of it, and I enjoyed it. But I wanted like more weapons, and not just like puzzle weapons, but things that had real weight and stuff. And I think Demon Souls with the managing your stamina really did hit on something. And it is a little slower than these games, and you don't really get those crazy combos. But when you can like kind of armor stuns or armor break someone, get around and get a backstab,
Yeah.
it works.
Stun
It feels
lock?
stun lock. Thanks. it feels good.
You gotta head over to the Demon Souls wiki
If you
for the
think
proper
of
terminology.
think of like the combat in games like Bayonetta, it's essentially off the wall comic book shit. Demon Souls is kind of more, I don't know, if you look at one place where this might have started, like Bushido Blade, where it's more like naturalistic, weapons have weight. One hit is consequential.
Oh,
That
true.
end of the spectrum hasn't been as explored as a crazy comic book shit, and I think that could be cool.
Yeah, I think it's also time, I mean, where like artificial intelligence and maybe just physics, where we can, you know, get some different combat stuff rather than, you know, a lot of attacks these days is it goes straight through a guy, you know, you're just doing wide attacks, you have like 4 people at once. You know, there's not a lot of momentum and weight, and your weapon doesn't stop when it hits something. But I mean, I feel like there are new things that people could do, and I just really want to see some new shit.
Joining us, Mike Damiani
What up?
and Daniel Bloodworth.
Yo.
And we are going to be talking about the news out of Japan for the Nintendo 3DS.
So,
The handheld that cures cancer.
Referencing an earlier recording. I think we will retread on some issues.
Some facts.
Yeah. So the price.
Price is 25,000 yen, which does not equal $300. Well, it does, but it doesn't mean it will be priced that here.
Yeah, because that's not. They officially had no price for Europe or US. So
Yeah, which they probably will by the time this goes up, and will just make us all look silly.
Curious why they don't announce that stuff now. Like, why did they hold that off?
I was expecting a press release in the morning. Yeah, I don't know.
And when's it coming out?
In the U.S. and Europe, it's coming out in March. In Japan, it's February 26th.
And is that 2011?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
A lot of people are disappointed by that.
Yeah, actually, the investors,
people were
like,
wrong.
they're like,
Who was
Like
wrong?
Shane.
If you
Yeah.
if you buy
If
the
you're listening, I'm
Japanese
so
one,
sorry.
can you play US tapes on it?
They haven't said that, but
I'm sure they'll. I don't
judging by
know.
the DSI, they're
Yeah, I'm
probably going to
afraid.
region lockout stuff.
Yeah.
bullshit.
But I heard
It's
they are
hard
going to
to
let
say.
people
Yeah.
bring over their DSiWare. They are
Yes,
figuring
you
away.
can-
So
you
that's
can
cool.
support that.
They
Because
said it's limited, though. Like, you can only transfer it so many times from the DSi to 3DS.
oh,
Still better
well,
than-
that makes sense.
And then some software is still going to be locked out completely. Like, you won't be able to transfer it at all.
Oh, and speaking of the software, that was some cool announcements, some cool video coming out of there. I think Street Fighter looks like
pretty
Street
good,
Fighter
yeah.
4.
Does it though? Like that thing that they were showing in the video, like the gameplay, that could have just been some down-resed Street Fighter 4.
Yeah, but I think maybe
They
you have to
put
give them
trick
the
you.
benefit of the doubt. I mean, we've seen.
Technology.
Yeah.
I mean, we
Come
saw
on, gotta
the
be wary.
we saw Metal Gear in
yeah,
person.
Metal Gear looked great. I think if they can do
Yeah.
that Metal Gear stuff,
no-
they can probably do.
Yeah, iPhone Street Fighter
Fighter.
doesn't look that bad. So I mean,
And we saw Resident Evil in person as well, and it looks as good as it does in the videos.
Yeah, that
so-
game looks
Oh, yeah.
pretty crazy.
Yeah.
The
And then-
Mercenaries one, too. They
I mean,
announced two.
Nintendo like out PSP'd the PSP now. I think.
Oh, well, definitely, because the thing is I was playing through Peace Walker when I saw that Metal Gear demo, so I had a very crisp comparison of the two games, and it looks a lot better than Peace Walker, at least.
Do you guys think that price is going to be a big issue?
I think
for
the
some
console.
people?
I think it will be so good that you will want to get a second job and save up your money. Oh, that was the PS3.
Well, what I think
Sorry.
is interesting is that even though 3D is kind of a buzz thing right now, like Nintendo is very much like this is an uphill battle. Nobody's going to be able to understand it until they see it for themselves. We're going to have to work really hard to market it.
Yeah, I think it'll sell. I mean, when I saw it at E3 for first, I thought, I was telling people I think this is going to cost as much as like a console because of how much I was impressed by it. I mean, I just don't think they can.
And Nintendo tends to make money on their hardware.
Yeah,
so.
they
Yeah.
do.
I know what they're gonna do. They're gonna come out with The Wizard 2. It's gonna be a 3D movie where the kid goes and enters the. It's gonna be little
California.
Damiani entering the Nintendo.
Mario
Championship.
Galaxy 3.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay, look at all these tapes we got coming out with this, man. They really like this in 3D.
As long as they show me where the warp whistles are.
They're improving all of the wireless functionality. They're calling tag mode Street Pass now, which I guess is just a more accurate translation of the original word or whatever. And so that
Street Pass.
what
It
I
sounds like
like,
something you'd use for like tolls or something. I don't know.
I mean, we already knew that it was going to work with all of the different games. Like, you don't actually have to have the game in anymore. But now they're showing that they have like a little light so that you know when you have data.
I'm excited about Virtual Console on it
Yes.
as well. There's
Yeah.
a lot of great Game Boy games and great Game Boy Advance games as well. Game Boy
Gargoyle's
Advance doesn't
Quest.
seem that far away. Hey, Gargoyle's Quest is awesome.
I know, that's why.
They
Firebrand.
There probably are going to be Game Boy Advance, but their page makes no reference to them right now. It's
Okay.
just Game Boy.
I want to play some
Just
Super
about-
Mario Land in 3D.
Yeah, I have to finish
Kill
watching
some
through the
Lin
full
Popos.
conference, so maybe it's in there and it's just not on the page.
Yeah.
But
Did they say anything about pricing?
For games?
No,
that was the thing they left out. I was kind of curious to see what things were going to cost.
I don't know. They sell DSiWare stuff really cheap.
Yeah, they
of
have
that
some
stuff's
$3,
$2.
$1 stuff.
Yeah, so.
Well, more specifically, the actual games themselves. How much are they going to cost? Because like the upper end DS games are like what, $34.99 for like the Square
There's $40
Enix,
ones.
or they're $40 ones.
Yeah.
So what are these going to cost?
I wouldn't expect them to go too much more.
$5.
Have they shown any games yet that used the 3D technology for anything other than like a gee whiz effect?
Gee whiz.
Well, they're using the those AR things. There's like a demo that's bundled with the system to where like you're using the cameras and it's 3D cameras, and then you like put a card down on the table and it's like I have judgment that there's a thing popping out of the card, or the card creates a hole in a table, or that kind of thing.
Right.
Oh, that's 3D with live action videos.
Yeah.
Definitely an interesting idea.
I don't know if
I wonder if any of that Move stuff with the iToy is doing anything like that.
And I don't know if they showed it off, but then they Level 5 mentioned Layden, the new
Yeah,
one.
Layden's
Is
some-
going to use actual
some 3D
3D for
stuff.
the puzzles. Yeah.
Boo.
Ooh.
For me. And Mega Man Legends. Are you happy, Justin?
Yes, I'm happy.
Are you one of those people who are disappointed it's not on the graphically superior system? I saw some people complaining that
The
Mega Man.
PC?
I don't know.
Yeah, the PC. No, the
DirectX 11 thing.
There was a vocal minority very upset that it was not on like 360 or PS3. Is like,
Well, look what happened to
Oh, what?
Valkyria. Well, look what happened to Valkyria Chronicles. I mean, you make an awesome game and then you get shoved into the PSP. No one
Yeah.
understands you. But
Well,
no, I'm still psyched.
I
Mega Man
think-
Legends is a really cool series.
I think we're going to hit this crazy handheld renaissance. I mean, it's funny to think back like 5 years ago when people were saying handhelds were like the ghetto and the PSP was going to lead people out. And then, the DS, which had some power, but like really, really just destroyed that market. And now we have Nintendo innovating with crazy graphics.
Well, what
looks like it's going to be a great control scheme. I don't think Nintendo's going to mess up control. I wonder if they will put Virtual Boy games on the Virtual Console.
I
though.
don't think so. I'm worried that a lot of the games might just be like remakes or updates at first, because we're kind of
Dead or Alive looks pretty lame. I'll come right
Ridge
out and
Racer
say
looks
that.
like the worst game they have
But
right
it's
now.
Ridge
That
Racer.
looks bad. I mean, they got the Ocarina of Time, and they have Star Fox being remade,
and they have Pilot Wings on Wii Sports Resort.
and then
Island.
they announced Tales of the Abyss is coming to. Yeah, they have a screenshot
Did
and everything.
with the Ocarina of Time stuff, did your careful Zelda eyes notice anything actually like new?
Oh, you want
content-wise?
to know the content-wise?
Or anything? Did
Link-
your Zelda eyes pick up on
Yes.
anything? Your lens of
Few
truth.
juicy snippets.
Oh, there you go.
What, you sure you want to ask this, man?
I'm ready.
They updated Link's model. He actually has his little shoulder strap now. That was in the artwork. It wasn't actually in the original game. So that was one small thing.
Is he fucking
his
right?
face-
Is he
They
fucking
cl-
right-handed
his,
now,
his
or
face
what?
shows his no. He's still left-handed. His face. They updated his expressions. They cleaned up the HUD. Only the map and a little action icon show up on the
That's
top
cool.
screen now.
That's
All
cool.
all
Yeah,
the
that was-
interface is on the bottom screen now, and it's I'm assuming it's stylus touch for all of it.
So when are they going to clean up the HUD for Skyward Sword?
Yeah, I saw those screens. They didn't clean it up at all, did they?
yeah.
Wii remote.
And I guess there was some other Nintendo news, like what the Motion Plus is bundled into a controller now.
Yeah, it looks
Okay.
exactly
Looks
like
cool.
a regular Wii
Whatever.
remote.
That's cool. Good
Yeah.
for them.
I don't know about that one last announcement. The 25th anniversary Mario DSi XL they announced
What about it?
that's coming out like in a month.
It's just the DSi XL with the imprint on the front.
I know, like announcing it so close to 3DS, I was like, why bother?
Because
Just-
people collect that stuff.
Yeah, I guess seemed superfluous.
It's like
It
commemorative
is.
coins,
That's
Totally
exactly what it
useless,
is. It's
but,
superfluous.
Well, thanks everyone for joining us for another episode of Invisible Walls. As always, you make us do this. No, if you guys have any questions for On the Hook, please send them our way. The URL's on the screen right now, or it should be. Shane will be back soon, so you won't have to suffer through this for much longer. And I think that's it. Anyone else want to say anything?
I got a good feeling.
Oh,
Thanks, Miguel.
I didn't mention the 3DS pedometer. It tracks how many steps you're walking all the time.
You heard it here first.
No fucking shit.